Mr. Pelletier,
Here.
Mr. Stanley,
Here.
Mr. Gromko,
Here.
Mr. Dobbs.
Here.
Mr. Nichols is traveling but may call in. Mr. O'Connell, not here. Mr. Sidoric,
Here.
on vacation. Nevertheless, appreciate the participation. Mr. Thomas is here from the chamber.
Here. Yep.
And Catherine Donegan from the planning office is on the call. And as I mentioned earlier, Dawn Geit is taking the minutes remotely. And she's watching this meeting via YouTube. Thank you, Dawn.
All right, we have a quorum. The next is a Pledge of Allegiance. I guess we could do it sitting. You didn't have a flag there, Jerry?
I have a, well, wait a minute. There you go.
Perfect.
All right, good
Pledge
job.
of Allegiance to the
The
flag
Flag
of the United
States of America,
And
to the republic
For which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under God, indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
liberty
and
justice
for all.
I feel like the guy at the House of Doors, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, you look like the lumberjack, Jerry. Okay. First thing on the agenda, approval of the minutes. I guess we'll take motions for the three separate groups of minutes we have here. First, the regular meeting back on February 18th before COVID. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes? And can I have a motion for approval?
Motion to approve the minutes of February 18th, 2020.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? Aye.
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 Minutes for March 3rd of the Incentive Policy Committee. Motion to approve?
Move to approve the Incentive Policy Committee minutes from March 3rd, 2020.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Minutes from the May 28th meeting of the Incentive Policy Committee. Motion to approve?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, first item of business, discussion and possible recommendations regarding the incentive policy. I'd like to ask Bill Stanley to handle this.
Sure, Dave. So you may recall that before all this hit back in March, Jerry had put together a committee, which was Derek, Don, and myself, to kind of take a look at the incentive policy, which has been in existence for many years and expires every 3 years. So it's going to expire at the end of June. And so Jerry did some good background work for us. He spaded through the incentive policies of many of the surrounding towns and put together some nice charts and spreadsheets so we could see what everybody else was doing. And we talked about, some towns are much more aggressive than we are and others are far less aggressive. We focused on the towns that are around us and that are really our competition. We also talked to Jerry about, what he feels he needs to be competitive with the towns that are around us to bring businesses into Cheshire. And we had two meetings to go over all of this, and basically ended at the position that Jerry feels and we feel that the existing incentive policy is pretty effective and does what Jerry needs to have to help him lure businesses here, and couple that with the TIF, which we enacted just last year. We've got a pretty good package. So the committee came to the conclusion that we ought to recommend an additional 3-year extension of the existing incentive policy. That incentive policy ought to also mention the TIF program, that's available as an alternative. Either you do the incentive or you do the TIF, you don't do both. I think we also concluded that one piece that's missing right now is some sort of deadline for new businesses to apply for this relief, probably something like 6 months after they move in or get a CO. They have to apply, so we don't have these potential liabilities hanging out there for potential years if they decide they want to come in and apply at a later date. But I think that's essentially where we ended up. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jerry.
No, that's correct. We've had some long discussions, and I actually have to give credit where credit is due. Catherine Donegan was working remotely at the time, and she did a lot of work for me looking at incentive offerings from different towns. And as a matter of fact, she looked up 23 Connecticut towns and also 10 towns outside of Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and elsewhere in New Hampshire. And basically we took 13 of those 23 towns that were comparable in size to Cheshire, but also we looked at the incentive offerings of our surrounding towns, namely the abutters. As those of you who've been with us for a while, you know that we're ringed by enterprise zone communities that not only provide enterprise zone benefits, but some other things on top of that, incentive offerings on top of that. So in a real world, I probably would recommend not doing incentives, but everybody is trying to compete for limited economic development resources, and we have to compete. And I think what we're doing is probably we're in the middle of the pack. And that's really, I think, where we should be. You don't want to be too high. You don't want to be too low. And we're trying to, use our incentive offerings to recruit new business development, but in a fiscally responsible way. So I think Bill was an excellent summary, and I can't really add any more to it than that. And I don't know if Derek or Don, who was part of this group, have anything to add too as well.
Jerry, right now under the current plan, how long does someone have to apply for the incentives? There's no cutoff?
No. And, we just had a recent incentive that the council approved, but it was well after the CO. And I kept chasing, going up and delivering, emailing the incentive application. And finally it came in, but I don't feel comfortable with going to the EDC and the council well after the CO. So we don't have a deadline. And we had talked, and the suggestion was made to put a deadline in no further than 60 days after the issuance.
60 days, okay.
Yeah, that you can apply, which is reasonable. You don't have to apply early, but at least you have some time. A lot of guys want to apply earlier because I've been told it helps them obtain financing when you have an incentive behind it, your request for financing.
Now, Jerry, the recommendations of the EDC now have to go before the council,
Yes.
and they'll take it up in the next couple of months, or
I would guess next month, but I may be wrong, but I would think next month.
okay.
The incentive policy expires June 30th, as you all know. I don't think a delay of 2 weeks or 3 weeks will be a problem, though.
No,
Do we need to vote on this today, Jerry, or do we need to, where do we go from here?
I think it would be helpful to vote that the commission, I'm not going to put words in your mouth, recommend continuance of the incentive policy for another 3 years with modifications. And, I can outline the modifications as outlined.
As we discussed?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I would make that motion.
do
Second,
I have a second?
second,
All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay. Speakers for future meetings.
Yeah, at the last meeting, we had lined up 2 senior staff members from Hartford Healthcare, but you know what happened. And if you want to go forward with that, with those speakers, I could line them up. I'd hate to do this by Zoom, though, to be honest with you. But we could do it by Zoom if you feel okay with it. I hope that, come July, we'll be meeting together again.
Yeah.
And I really do. In addition to those 2 speakers from Hartford Healthcare, the chamber president from Greater New Haven, Garrett Sheehan, and Ann Benowitz, who's the economic development person, has expressed an interest in joining the meeting. I go on their Zoom meetings periodically. they hold monthly meetings with people like me in the greater New Haven region. And, we talk about, common problems and what's going on in what town. But they did express an interest in coming to Cheshire as well.
So, Jerry, are you going to line up somebody for July, or are we just going to hold off until September?
I think it depends, Dave. If the town manager says, okay, you can have meetings together, it's going to be different because we're all going to be spaced apart. But then I would invite them, clearly, unless you guys feel comfortable with meeting with them via Zoom. If you do, I'll set up the meeting with them that way.
Jerry, how do the speakers feel about meeting with us?
Basically, Hartford Healthcare, when I called, it was Jim Schimmer and basically the president of this region for Hartford Healthcare. They were going to come to the meeting. So I don't think they'd have a difficulty meeting with you either remotely or virtually or in person. It just depends on your preference, really.
When is Sean going to make? Do you know when Sean's going to make that determination?
I would think by the beginning of July.
Okay. Well, once he makes the determination, then you can reach out to everybody, and we figure out what we want to do for the July meeting.
Yeah.
You may just hold off on a speaker, take care of whatever business needs to, and then schedule somebody for September.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay. I'm going to move the election of officers to the end of the meeting. So the next item on the agenda is the Back to Business Task Force.
Yeah, I've been speaking with Yetta Auger, and I'd like to put together a committee made up of EDC members and members of the chamber. I'd like to have a good cross section, of the business community represented, and discuss ways that, we can press upon Cheshire residents the need to do business in Cheshire, and also see what other businesses are doing, maybe best practices to increase their businesses despite COVID-19, that we could share with the other businesses. It's pretty much of a blue sky, to be honest with you. The state of Connecticut is looking for the towns to create long-term economic recovery committees. And I was telling the manager, this is my approach. This is how I would approach it. We're going to be looking at gaps, what the needs in the towns were. For instance, we're hearing that there are a lot of openings in daycares. Basically some daycare jobs or spots have gone by the wayside, namely 20,000 daycare spots. And that's going to be problematic if you want to come back to work. Where are you going to put your kids if you don't have daycare? So I want to hear from the daycare, see what's going on there, among other things. And, Don, I don't know if Yetta reported on this at the board meeting today at the chamber.
Very briefly.
Okay.
Gary, as far as daycare is concerned, there's been quite a few daycare facilities that have closed their doors for one reason or another.
Mm-hmm.
But until the state changes the capacity allowances by the different daycare providers are in a tough position, because in talking with a client today who's in daycare, they're only able to operate at 50% of capacity.
Well,
And until the limits are raised, then, not only are there going to potentially be fewer providers out there, the daycare providers that are still operating are not going to be able to operate necessarily at full capacity until the state does something different.
see, that's the perfect type of piece of information I'd be looking for from this committee. Because I didn't know that, and if there's something we could do to address it, that's the purpose, primarily the purpose of the committee. I look at this as business retention through and through, and it's a way to hang on to what we have here. And so
But let's say, here's the other problem,
Mhm.
okay? Let's say the capacity levels are raised. There's also a problem getting people to come back to work
Yes.
because of the enhanced unemployment benefits. And there may be a push in Congress to extend those out even past July 31st.
hmm
So you could have a situation where people may stay unemployed by choice for quite a period of time because of the enhanced benefits. And even though employers may be, when they get the claim forms from the Department of Labor and sending them back and saying they were offered reemployment, they're so jammed up in the Labor Department that they're not addressing those responses that quickly.
Yeah, and I've been hearing that too. And I remember hearing it from some of the salon owners in town. They wanted to reopen, but some of their people that work for them, really weren't interested in coming back to work at 50% capacity. And, the income is down, but they can make more money on staying on unemployment, especially with that $600 a week loan. So, this is going to be a learning experience for a lot of people, including me. And then we've got to make our adjustments, see how we could, attack some of these things. So what I'm going to be doing is reaching out to the commission to see if somebody or whoever you'd like, would be interested in volunteering and serving on this committee. I just want to see what we can do to help.
Okay. All right. Liaison reports. Mark.
Obviously, the events, there haven't been any events going on, but Chamber has announced their golf tournament will be set for July 21st. So if anyone's interested, and if it needs to be, they have a backup date set for August 18th, if anybody's interested in that. But obviously, with the pandemic, just trying to focus on who they can help out with companies and things like that.
Good. Don, you have anything to report from the chamber?
Yeah, the only thing related to what Jerry was just talking about, the chamber is going to be advertising a Dale Carnegie class about, I forget the exact term of it, but it was something around helping businesses perform coming out of this pandemic. So this might be right in line with what you were talking about, Jerry, but I'll wait until that gets pushed out there and we'll make sure it gets passed on to everybody.
All right, thank you very much. The other thing I forgot to mention, I met with the chamber. I met with Yetta and Liz White from the Cheshire Herald, and I think it's going to start tomorrow. You're going to be seeing. It's going to run for 4 full-page ads in the Cheshire Herald, basically encouraging people to eat, shop, do business in Cheshire. And if you go to a restaurant or a retailer or whatever, and you spend $25, you can get your send a receipt to the chamber. You'll be put into a raffle to receive a $100 gift card. You spend $25, you could win a $100 gift card. It's just a way to get people to spend money in Cheshire, and just try to help, do what we can to get things moving here. So you'll probably see that in the paper Thursday. That is on Thursday.
Hey, Mark, one of the things that I think might be helpful to businesses, especially right now, is just trying to better understand like the PPP loan. I mean, Dave, right? It's very complicated and it's evolving daily. But if we really, really want to help business owners, we've got these grants out there offered by the federal government, and they're not easy to understand. So if we offered some sort of seminar or Zoom calls, and we have, maybe an expert on the line to kind of answer questions and kind of help navigate the process, that might be helpful.
Well, the problem right now with the PPP loan, yeah, the SBA has come out with, you know, the extension out to 24 weeks. You could use the money. But they haven't really come out with, say, any hard and fast final regulations. They're supposed to be modifying the forgiveness form, and I do not believe it's been released yet. And then when you talk to some banks, they're saying, well, we're not going to accept that form. We're going to have our own way of doing it. So like with the application process, the forgiveness process is going to be, it could be like the wild, wild west again, because everybody's kind of doing their own thing. I'm going to be contacting a friend of mine who's involved in commercial lending and SBA lending, and I'm going to try to get some questions answered for our clients, because we don't know. We're trying to guide them as to when to pull the trigger for forgiveness. Should you do it after 8 weeks because maybe you've spent just about all the money and your employee count is back to where it was back in February, but if you go out 24 weeks, you may not be able to maintain that employee count, which it could work against you in the forgiveness application. And we haven't seen anything saying that, oh, you could apply after 12 weeks or 16 or 20. It seems it's either 8 or 24. So there's great idea, Derek. Great idea. Might be a few weeks out before, you know, things have been ironed out. But it would probably be best to get one of the bankers in to explain it. But what a lot of the bankers are doing is they call your accountant, and we're saying, well, you got to call the bank because they're the ones that are going to be accepting the forgiveness applications, and how do they plan on processing it? So it's still, there's still a lot of things up in the air.
Dave, how about somebody from the SBA? Would it be worth it having them on the Zoom?
If you're able to get somebody from the SBA, that would be fantastic.
I think I could do that.
Yeah, that'd be perfect.
Yeah, great idea, Jerry.
And if they don't have any,
okay, Jerry, your report.
Yes, I wanted to ask you, come July, for the July meeting, if you don't have any objection, I'd like to get back to the 7:30 a.m. format. Not that we have a problem getting everybody together, but that seems to work best. And, you know, Catherine Donegan, you know, I hate to get her out of bed earlier, but she's agreed to you know, monitor the meeting. So is that okay with you if we went back to 7:30 a.m.?
yeah,
Hey,
I prefer that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I apologize for the change. It was just, we're trying to coordinate a lot of parts here. So thank you for the cooperation and you know, sitting in on this meeting today. There's been a lot of activity in town. Let's start with beer. Okay, I want to talk about beer. We just received an application for another brewery in town. It's going to be at 125 Commerce Court, Unit 7. And it's going to be called, the brewery is going to be called Cheshire Craft Brewing. Small, 2,400 square feet. But they're really excited about starting a brewery, the people behind it. And, you know, they just filed with planning and zoning yesterday. I expect that they'll be finished next week, not next month rather. And then they're going to work on the fit up of the building and open. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. I talked to Counterweight often, and Bill Stanley just helped me with them recently. Thank you, Bill.
Mhm.
And they're still coming to Cheshire. They're working on our plans now. I expect to probably start construction next year sometime, only because, you know, they like a lot of breweries, a lot of businesses have lost a considerable amount of income, but I don't think that's really the reason. They want to see wait and see what's going to go on with the COVID virus. I mean, their worst nightmare would be to start a project and then have to shut down, so, but they fully well anticipate coming to Cheshire. So that project is still on. Richard Chevrolet just submitted plans for a 25,000 square foot building just to the north of Realty Drive. There's I think it's an 18-acre site that years ago there was an approval for a hockey rink there. It never went anywhere. And I led them to this site and the plans are submitted. I think Richard is going to move their body shop over there and maybe some other function too, but the plans came in. Ball and Socket Arts, we're
Jerry,
winding.
isn't that in the TIF zone?
No, it's in the Highland Avenue Design District.
Yeah, that's right, sorry.
Ball and Socket Arts, we're winding down with the remediation grant. We have about $27,000 left, and we're going to do a few more remediation related things with them. And then if there's another round of funding, which will probably occur next month, we may see something, then I fully expect that the town will apply for that funding. There's a couple good articles about ProCare and Olive and Henry in your packet. Dragon Buffet, basically there's talk about a coffee vendor going there. That's on hold right now because of COVID-19, but Joe Nozzle owns the property and eventually he's going to knock it down and redevelop it. Thing that, is you're going to be reading more about is 50 Hazel Drive. It's about 22 acres off of Waterbury Road. It's a decrepit, falling apart former nursing facility that's fallen on hard times. The developer wants to knock it down and put up two buildings, 114 rental units, 25% of which will be affordable, which means 29 units. So you're going to be seeing more about that in the weeks ahead. The status of state-owned land in the interchange zone. Dan Bombero from the engineering department and I have done a lot of investigative work trying to straighten out the status of Birch Drive. Birch Drive goes back to 1957. The town's been maintaining it and receiving money from the state for Birch Drive. Somewhere along the line, the state of Connecticut bought condemned property around Birch Drive, and it included Birch Drive, but Birch Drive was never formally transferred. The right-of-way was never transferred from the town. So I think we're straightened out that. Once we straighten out that, which should be any time now, we're going to probably see a deed from the state on the conveyance, which will probably be around between 50 and 55 acres. We don't know what the total size of that is yet because it really is going to be in the hands of the commissioner. But we made significant progress within the last 6 months. Hasn't been easy, but we did it. Water service to the interchange zone. We continue working with the RWA and the developer of the interchange zone, along with town of Southington. A lot of moving parts here to try to bring water service up to that area. And, we've come a long way from where we started years ago, a couple years ago. So hopefully we'll resolve that in rather soon. In your packet, I just included information about Amazon in the town of Windsor. They're still working through an incentive request from Amazon for a rather large warehouse up there. I'm not sure where that's going to end, but I just thought you should know about it. So that's my report.
Thank you, Jerry. All right, election of officers. We go through this every year. I would like to step down as chairman of the commission. I've really enjoyed the long period of time that I've served as chairman, and I thank everyone for their support over the years. And I would just like to make a proposal to put out for a vote that in my place, Bill Stanley would step up as chairman of the commission, with Derek Gromko as vice chair and Don Dobbs as secretary. I'd like to make that motion. I guess Steve and Mark would be the ones that really would be able to second that motion if it's acceptable to them.
Mark can't,
Mark can't.
yes, he's not a member. I'd like to have you as a member, Mark, but you're not a member.
Yes, yes, I can do that.
You're second that motion?
Yes.
Okay, Steve Sidorik seconds the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Thank you very much. Bill,
Thank you.
the gavel or stapler over to you.
Thanks very much.
Now, the chairman, you can call the meeting adjourned.
I've got big shoes to fill.
Yeah, I'm gonna miss,
12 triple E's.
Yeah.
I'm gonna miss Dave's abuse, that's for sure.
Well, that's great. Well, so I guess we are adjourned. That's the last item on the agenda, right?
Yeah, congratulations. Well done, Dave, really, well done.
Yes, thank you for your service.
Thank you, David.
Thanks very
I'm
much.
not
Dave.
going
Thanks, Dave.
anywhere. I'm just, I'm staying on the commission.
All right, good.
I'm not stepping down at this point. So, all right, everyone. Thanks again for your support, and hopefully we'll see each other in July, maybe face to face.
Thank
Where
you.
I'm
Let's
at.
go.
That would be good.
Thank you all for being on the meeting today. Greatly appreciate it.
All right,
Good
Jerry,
night,
thank
everyone.
you.
Thanks.
Okay,
Bye now.
bye.